Hello. It is Truly Redeemed here, Tiffany. I just wanted to give a quick word of encouragement. I think what happens oftentimes, I always try to start with my personal experience because I can relate to my experience more than anyone else's experience. But personal experience wise, today I was worshiping and just kind of thinking it. You know how you might be just kind of just talking to the Lord, not necessarily on your knees praying, but which is still prayer. You just kind of having conversations with God. And this morning I was just talking to him, and I heard in my spirit, and I was like, Lord, it's like, why is this? I don't even remember what I was asking, but here's what hit my spirit. I heard in my spirit, I have to be real to you. So I was like, oh my God. And I started to write it down. And then I could hear the Spirit of God say that, I'm going to read what I said. It says, I have to be real to you. Change your mind that I am just the God of heaven. You keep doubting because of your image of me. So a lot of times our faith can only move as far as our mindset is concerning who God is. So if in our mind, the only image of God we have is just a God who sits high and he looks low, and that's amazing, that's powerful, but we can't limit him to just being that God. He is the God, not only the God who sits high and looks low, he's the God who healed the sick and raised the dead. He's the God who caused the blind eyes to see. He's the God who caused the deaf ears to hear. He is the God who caused the lame to walk. He is that God he's the Almighty, the Most High God. He's the God who created the heaven, the earth in 7 days. In 7 days. And think about the complexity of our bodies, the complexity of this earth, and of this world. He is the God who created all of these things. He is the God who did this. So if we limit him to just the God of heaven, that leaves us here alone on earth. God is everywhere all the time, and he is here even now. We have the legitimate Spirit of God living inside of us. So because we have the Spirit of God living inside of us, where we are limited, God's limitless power reigns. Where we are limited in our natural capacity as human beings, God's limitless power reigns. And the amazing thing about it is God is moving with us when we move. So every task that we do, we are never alone. He is literally moving with us and flowing with us whenever we move, whenever we flow. So if you have assignments, if you have schoolwork, if you have a job, if you have different things, if you have the mindset that God is omnipresent, meaning that he is everywhere all the time, then you'll understand that whatever you're doing in that, you have the ability to do it because of him. You are limitless also, not in your flesh, but in the Spirit of God that lives inside of you. So I'm here to encourage you to walk in your limitless power, which is the Spirit of God that lives inside of us. Don't limit God from your image. He is a father, but I need you to examine your mindset of who a father is to you. Maybe your father was not the best. Maybe your father wasn't even there. Maybe you don't even know who your father is. So then now it comes to a place now where we have to learn who is a father. What does a real father look like? What does a real father look like? Here, my baby. Yes, you can have some milk. Okay. Well, so with that being said, I just really, really, really want to encourage you to see the God of the Bible. He is the God of the Bible. He is still the same God of now. Bring my key, Delana. So I challenge you to walk in that faith, knowing that he is a limitless God. And where your limitations begin, where your limitations is, that's where his limitless power begins. So as soon as we begin to open the door, God is able to flow in us. And here's what I realized. Last night I had a dream I had a dream that I have one of those bolt locks on my doors in my house, and in the bolt lock, well, I had a dream last night that I came in the house and locked the door, and somebody just walked into my door, and I was like, how in the world did they lock? And the bolt lock didn't mean nothing to them. They came in and and basically just came into my house. I wasn't necessarily in danger. I don't remember being in fear in my dream or felt like I was in danger, but I was very confused as to how was it that the person who came into my house got into my house. And I can't quite remember. I want to think that it was my brother who came in. But anyways, here's what I sense in my spirit that means that whatever locks or whatever shackles or chains or whatever that you have in your life, that you have maybe said to yourself in your spirit or in your soul that, God, I'm not going to let you deal with this, or I'm going to hide this from God because it's not really enough for him. I'm going to hide this from God because it's not really enough for him. But instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my lock up there. I'm going to make sure I lock my door real good so that he cannot, I'm not going to deal with it. Basically, I'm not going to deal with it at all. But I believe that in this season, God is opening those doors. And he's not necessarily forcing the doors open because he's not going to go against our will. But he's going to gently open these doors in our lives and present it to us. And as he presents it to us, he gives us an opportunity to actually confess it to him, to be real about what it is that we've dealt with. And I really do feel like right now, this is what this is about. In this season, God is sincerely getting ready to open up those doors that we have locked for so long in our lives, and he's getting ready to be revealing it. He's getting ready to bring it back up. And the reason he's bringing it back up, just not so you can be shamed, not so you can be fearful, not so you can be hurt, but he's bringing these things back up because he wants you to be able to deal with it. He wants you to be able to deal with these things and be healed. God's desire for you is that you will be whole, is that you will be whole. He's not necessarily concerned so much of your happiness. He sees the big picture. We only see what we see, but God is interested in us being whole. So he's beginning to open those doors that we put bolt locks on and we refuse to deal with. So I challenge you that as God begins to regurgitate these things, as God begins to bring these things up from our past, as God begins to deal with these situations in our past, that you will begin to also begin to accept it as it is. It is important in psychology, in counseling, and all of these services that we begin to accept, not deny it. It is one thing to walk in faith, and because faith we got to see it before we believe. We got to believe it before we see it. That's a different thing. But when we have dealt with the situation, and say for instance you may have been molested, say for instance you may have been hurt, I believe that God is bringing these things to the forefront of our minds and our hearts. And it's very uncomfortable. But what God is trying to get us to do is to deal with it. Accept it. Accept it. Ask God for clarity. Write it out. God is going to bring it and regurgitate these things to us so that we can deal with it. And as you begin to deal with it, get help if you need to get help. Go to counseling service if you need to go to counseling. But you do what you have to do to deal with it. Because in this new season that we're going in a season where God is going to need us to be whole. We can't go into this season carrying this stuff and this mess that we dealt with in the past. So a lot of this stuff is going to regurgitate. So I challenge you in this season that as God brings it to you, whether it be molestation, whether it be rape, whether it just be rejection, maybe it was neglect, maybe it was just fear, hurtfulness, any of those things, that you accept the situation as it is and that you would deal with it and come to a place of forgiving the person that you dealt with, forgiving the person that hurt you, and also coming to a place of getting the help that you need if you're not to that place. So I thought this message was just about seeing God for who he is. And I believe that it is. But I feel like the bulk of this message now is that God is challenging his people to deal with the situations that they have locked the door of. If you know that you've locked the door and you've hidden it, put bolts on it, and you didn't deal with it, and you just tucked it away as if it didn't happen, when God brings this up and you don't deal with it, it will control the rest of your life. So as those things begin to regurgitate, as those things begin to come back to your memory, as you begin to have these little feelings of hurt and pain and all of this, I challenge you to go before the Lord and present your case before him and watch him bring clarity to your heart and clarity to your mind concerning this situation, that you may be free, because whom the Son sets free is free indeed. God bless you.